Fearless Gamers, and welcome to another podcast here on Fearless Games. I'm at the vet, and I'm getting an angry shaking of the head by my girlfriend while being joined by...
James the Wild Card.
What were you about to say?
I was going to say, the what?
How you doing?
Not bad. How's it going?
Pretty good. Been a very good week. I got a couple of truths to lay down in this podcast. Hope you're ready for some truthage.
Oh, God, he's talking like the young punks do these days. What's going on?
Well, the kids are all... You got moths in your closet.
And that's been another edition of the podcast here at Fearless
Games. Good night. Check your closet.
So what's the truth you want to drop?
Milk does a body good.
It does, actually. If you're not, as long as you're not lactose intolerant.
Yes. There's some personal truths, and then some other non-personal truths that are more opinions than truths, but they're still true.
Wow.
The first is I've started collecting demons.
Demons, eh?
Yeah. I had some money, so I bought some iTunes cards, and I bought the digital demon codex.
Now, so I assume you're talking 40k demon?
Yes, but I have plans to magnetize all of them so I can swip them between the two games.
Gotcha.
I decided because like Black Library is doing that whole short story submission thing, which I have to see if they are actually still doing. I think I still have time. I want to submit a story. And the story that I came up with gave me an idea for a new HQ for my Thousand Sons.
Okay.
Basically a dude who I haven't picked what chapter he's from, but he's a fallen Space Marine from 40k, not from the Heresy. He's going to be using the generic Chaos Sorcerer, dude. I'm like, well, he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. You know what? He's not actually a Thousand Sons member. So he joined up with this Thousand Sons Sorcerer to learn the ways of the warp. And unbeknownst to the Thousand Sunner, he's actually been studying demonology. And it's one of these classic, I'm going to overthrow him and take over because I am more powerful and he just won't recognize it. Type of thing.
Classic boy meets demon. Demon devours boy.
Yep. Very. It's the tale as old as time.
Oh God. It's a little better love story than Twilight.
Indeed it is. Especially the ending of mine has a much better love ending. I won't spoil it for the rest of you, but I'll tell you at the end of the podcast. Yeah. But I bought some Pink Horrors.
Nice.
Some Flavors of Zenith.
So I'm assuming this is going to be a Nurgle demon list with the Zinchi stuff you've been announcing.
Screw over Nurgle. And I just recently bought some Bloodletters of Corn.
Okay.
Corn, not Karn.
Yeah, corn.
Yeah, corn, the vegetable.
Yes.
They're all going to have corn stalks.
Oh, of course, they got it.
And a picture of corn on their banners.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of, because I started putting some monies away on the sides, and I was thinking of purchasing this Zone Mortalis set for funsies. And then I went, you know what? I'll go a little bit more, and I'm going to buy that Greater Demon of Zenith off of Forge World's website.
Gotcha.
Especially with most of the rumors going out, and supposedly a lot of Forge World Warhammer monsters are going out. I'm like, I probably should pick him up, because he's probably going to go faster than the Zone Mortalis sets.
Yeah.
With Heresy around, Zone Mortalis is going to stick around for a while. I don't know how much longer those Greater Demons will be.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, also, new job interviews. Got 2. One of them was at a locksmith.
Yeah.
I went and we broke open a rifle safe, and I can only think of you.
Well, yeah, those things do have some pretty cool stuff in, the safe doors and whatnot.
Yep. I finally got to see how a combination lock works with tumblers.
Yep, fancy stuff.
Very fancy. And now I can break into them.
Well, yeah.
And I found out, honest and for truly, the stethoscope trick does work in theory.
Oh yeah, it can work in theory. It's just...
Problem is, it'll take you 6 hours.
Yeah,
if you're lucky.
If you got time to kill.
But apparently there are supposedly... Now, this part I'm not sure if he meant with the stethoscope or without the stethoscope, but apparently there are dudes out there, like I think it's with a stethoscope. There are like a handful of people that can do it and can open a bank vault that way in 30 minutes.
Oh yeah, and there's even a dude out there who can do it just by feel.
Yep.
He can turn the the dial, and he can feel when everything clicks into place, and he can go.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah, it is crazy.
It's ridiculously nuts how things are going with that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and what's even crazier is that he can feel it. Like, there's one guy, he could feel it. And they did a test with him. What they did is they took a tumbler, or like a tumbler-like device to see how sensitive his feeling is. Uh-huh. And they put a feather on, he could feel when the feather touched something.
Huh.
And he could actually feel that. Like, he could feel really delicate stuff with his fingertips. Nobody knows why. But
that's kind of impressive.
Yeah. But this guy's got, like, he's got superpowered, feel delicate stuff with fingertips.
The most advanced superpowers.
Exactly. That's good. That's good. I don't have anything going on. But, I did pick up the Guardians of the Galaxy the other day because it's out to buy.
Yep, good movie.
And it was
good movie.
The funny thing about it was when I went to the register, the guy asked me if I'd seen it yet because he just purchased it but hasn't had a chance to watch it. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen it before. It's a good movie. And then the lady behind me, who was just you wouldn't expect somebody to have a typical person. The stereotypical somebody would not be interested in this type of film type of person.
Okay.
Because it's like a comic book film, and they don't look like the type who would be interested. Perks up saying, I haven't seen it either, but the soundtrack's really good because it has a good soundtrack. She was just like, I want to see it, but I just know the soundtrack's good. And I was like, I want to be like, what? But it was just funny.
What?
It was just funny because it's, I've heard when the movie came out, people were excited for the soundtrack. It's like a movie where people are like, soundtrack is awesome because it is. And then buying it, it just had this totally random stranger be like, yeah, no, the soundtrack's really good. I just haven't had a chance to see it yet. I want to be like, but you should see it.
I took my niece to see it.
Yeah.
And she was super excited because she knew every song in the soundtrack because of her parents.
There you go. It does have a good soundtrack.
Dude, the Hooked on the Feeling part is probably one of my favorite soundtrack moments in that entire film.
Yeah, no, it was...
Hooked on a Feeling! Blue Suede 19-something! That's my son! Dun, dun, dun. Great moment.
Yeah, no, it was a good, it's a good movie. If you haven't seen it yet, it's out to buy. You definitely
do it.
It's definitely a good purchase. You're not gonna do it. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. But that got me thinking. And we like movies. You like movies.
We do.
Yeah.
And Stars is movies.
Yes.
Only movies.
And FX got the movies. But anyways, but we have our typical stereotypical go-to movies. Like we like a Star Wars. We have our certain things that people would go, makes sense. You like that.
Yep.
What is a movie that I don't want to call it guilty pleasure because it sounds weird, but like what is a movie that if you said, yeah, I'm a fan of this movie, I've watched this movie numerous times, that would make people go, really, you like that movie?
Mm.
Do you have a film like that people would not expect you to actually enjoy or own or watch several times? We asked the tough stuff here at Fearless Games.
Yeah, well, the toughest thing is there's only 2 films I've ever watched that I absolutely, hate to the point where I refuse to watch it.
Well, not that you hate them.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, because of that, I enjoy almost everything I watch.
Right, but I mean,
I can't think of a film that I enjoy watching where people are like, really? I guess. I really can't think of one, to be perfectly honest.
Gotcha.
Like, I can't think of a film that I enjoy that I would find someone who's like, really? You like that?
Well, not because
actually,
it's a bad
okay.
movie, but like, still don't expect you to like it.
That's again, because there's a whole bunch of them that I enjoy that you probably wouldn't expect me to like. Like, let's see if I can think of one right off the top of my hat. I like Dan in Real Life.
Okay.
I thought that was a good movie. Let's see, 2 Weeks Notice I enjoyed.
Okay.
I do like, surprisingly, there's very few chick flicks I won't sit through and actually get enjoyment out of watching. But then again, it's one of these things where I can see a film and I could go, that was kind of bad, but I'll still sit and watch it all the way through. Because even though it's bad, I'm enjoying the fact that I'm watching it.
Right, and that's what I think, before giving you my 2 picks for myself, that's what I think is tough for people to understand. Like, when I say, I watched such and such a movie and I enjoyed it, they go, dude, that's not a good movie. It's like, you missed the point. I said I enjoyed it. I didn't say it's a good movie. Like,
yeah.
people can't separate the idea of enjoying something, in this case a movie,
yep,
and it not having to be quote unquote good, like
yeah, good example is like the Clown would be very shocked to say that I actually genuinely enjoy watching Van Helsing. It's not a good movie in any way, shape, or form, but I enjoy watching it.
Oh, I saw it in theaters and I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I know.
I saw it twice in theaters.
I know full well that if we're gonna put this on a power ranking scale, it's not gonna go anywhere. I know that for a fact. And I'm not saying it's a good movie.
That farmer in the episode where Raditz arrives has a higher power level than that film.
Exactly. But like, and that's why for me, I view, like, it's hard for me to say if a film's good or bad, because if I enjoyed it, did it not do its job? Did it not succeed in being a film? So it's good in a sense of that regard. It succeeded in doing what it meant to do, which is entertain. But I'm not gonna put Van Helsing, and I'm not gonna put what was the with Keanu Reeves, Constantine. I'm not gonna put Constantine and Van Helsing on the same level of Lord of the Rings or Episode 5 of Star Wars, or like,
any Marvel movie that's been out.
Yeah, or like the Avengers or anything. I'm not going to put it on that same level at all, because it's not. And no movie should really be like, that's shot that way, Van Helsing and Constantine style, should expect to be really on that same level, unless it's a hidden gem, which those two aren't. But for me, if I watched that movie and I went, you know what? I did not regret spending the 2 to 3, however long the movie is, like 2 hours, let's say. I do not regret doing that. If I did not regret spending money on a ticket, then for me the film worked. It's good in that respect. But as far as being a production that people are going to go, flawless execution, really nice, I wouldn't put it there. But for me, a film, like, I own the DVD. I don't know where it went. I don't know where it is anymore. But I have owned it. The film, I believe, was called Wicker Park.
Wicker Park, I've heard of.
I watched it not knowing anything about what it was supposed to be about. I don't even know why I bought it. I think because one of my friends like, hey, you should check out this film. I went, okay. It was like $10. So I'm like, I'll buy it. And so I bought it and I checked it out. And I watched the entire thing, and I enjoyed it. If you ask me what it's about, I'd be like, I don't know, because
a young Chicago advertising executive believes a woman he sees in a cafe is his long lost love. His conviction leads to obsession, and he puts his life on hold to trail her.
Exactly, but like, I couldn't really tell you anything specific about the film, other than it was enjoyable.
If I had one of those films where, like, you looked on my wall and you just went, what? I'd have to say the one film that I have that would make people go, what, is Rushmore.
Fair enough.
Granted, The reason I have that, school project.
There you go. Now, this other film, which I do own, and I've actually watched it multiple times, and it's not a film you would like. I don't think this would be your standard film that you would watch more than like twice if you own it. But I've watched it a good half a dozen times at the very least, and again, it's not like in Avengers or Captain America, like movies like that where like, yeah, watch it, or Expendables. It's not like that. It was a film that came out, I believe, 2008 or 9-ish, Unstoppable.
Unstoppable.
The train, the runaway train. And
oh, yeah, with the bomb on it or something?
Not the bomb.
Denzel Washington?
Yeah, Denzel Washington. There's no bomb. There's a whole bunch of hazardous chemicals on it, and they have to stop it.
Right, yes.
That film, I saw it in theaters. I liked it. When it came out, I bought it, and I've watched it a lot. And it's a film that when I look at the film, I go, there's no reason for me to watch this many times. But I really enjoy it. It's one of those films that I could put on and watch without getting up. Or I can put it on almost not like a background thing and paint with it. Or I can do whatever and have it on there as well. Because the thing that impressed me about this film was the ability to make an inanimate object feel like a villain. Like that train, the way they did the sound effect of like the soundtrack and like the noise in the background, like just through the soundtrack, makes the train feel evil. Like it's doing this like it's a villain. It makes it feel like, why are you doing this, train? But it's not. It's just a runaway train. But it almost personifies the train as a villain. And
Kirk's in it.
Yeah, Kirk's in it. So why not? But
sorry.
But it's just like that's what it was a really good use of soundtrack in terms of making something that could have been it's a train and they have to stop it. It's bad if it were to derail or whatever. It'd be terrible.
Yeah.
And it made it feel like a villain. Like there was like hero versus villain moment. And even though it's just a train, it doesn't know what it's doing. It's just going. It's because it's not alive. But it's that I don't know. And the just the banter between Denzel Washington and I forget his real name. So Captain Kirk.
Pine.
Yeah, Chris
Pine.
Chris Pine. The banter between them as their characters is good, and I don't know. It had good cuts in terms of going from scene to scene for certain things. And it doesn't feel too long. I don't know how long the film actually is, but it doesn't feel its length. So it just it's based on a true story, but it's obviously over dramatized.
Yep.
But it just felt good to watch that film. So this is a film that I owned and I've watched, like I said, at least half a dozen times. And most people will probably just watch it maybe twice and be like, "Yeah, I own that film. It's a good film," or whatever. Or "Yeah, I own it. It's okay." But for me, I just when I'm ever in the mood to watch a movie, I'm like, I don't know what I want to watch. I'll put Unstoppable on. Why not?
To be perfectly honest. With this is actually a film I would not be shocked to see on your shelf. Like knowing Unstoppable, I'd go, James would like this.
Oh yeah, I like it, but I mean, I think the part of the shocking factor comes in the fact that I've watched it at least 6 times.
So many times.
Yeah, and it's not like, man, this is awesome. I'm a Unstoppable super fan. No, it's just like it's not like, I mean, it's not gonna hold a candle to the amount of times I've run through the entire Star Wars series.
Yeah. Here's this funny character error in the film. At the start, Will states that they are supposed to pick up 25 cars. However, later, as they are leaving the zinc plant, Frank asks Will how many cars they are supposed to have, and Will replies 20.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's one of those films that it's fine. It's not like...
Yep.
But
yeah, no, it's just fun to find those goofs sometimes in those films.
Oh yeah, like in Lord of the Rings, apparently one of the scenes, one of the hobbits is wearing Nike shoes.
Interesting.
Like, because the shot was meant not to see his feet, but you saw his feet by accident, and it was like regular shoes.
The fools! Peter Jackson, he's totally lost all credit. Get rid of Peter Jackson.
Right, but I mean,
or like supposedly like how you're supposed to see a digital watch on one of the trumpeters in Ben-Hur, which we watched the scene. It's not true.
Gotcha.
The guy's got like a wristband on, and everyone just thinks it's a watch, but it's just like a leather wristband. The one thing you can see is the car tracks of the convertible that the camera's mounted on.
Totally justifiable, yeah. But yeah, no, it's just if anybody's ever if anybody's never seen Unstoppable, I recommend checking out just for like the
villainization of a train.
I wanted to say vilification, but it didn't work. The villainization of the train, because the soundtrack does a good job of doing that. And it's also kind of the way like the film cut, I don't know how to explain camera tricks, but one of them, when you first kind of see the train, is almost like, I call it a drunken stumble film shot, where it's kind of like a drunken stumble of the train, where it's not fully like just centered on it, and it makes it feel kind of like, oh no, it's a train, and it's
is the like a pitched angle?
It's like that you have like, instead of you're not shooting the train head on, you kind of like step to, let's say if you're looking at the train, you're kind of at, let's say 4 o'clock to the train.
Okay.
On a clock, if the plane is 12, you're at 4, and the camera kind of like, almost like a rapid zoom and then pan back and like a shift from right to left, and it does one of those like whoa type of things, and it just
sort of like
well.
one of the new, sort of like the Superman action cam.
Kinda, and it does that. It does that with kind of like a good kind of like a serious soundtrack tones to it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this train has got ominous feeling to it because of what they did.
This train is evil.
And exactly, and that's what they did with it. So. It's just funny, but
that just reminded me. I was watching a review of Superman, Man of Steel, and they were making fun of like the rapid zooming in and out of the thing.
Yeah,
and it's like, it looks like what did the cinematographer's demo reel look like? And it's just a picture of him. And you hear a little girl going, and he's like, okay, honey, give me the camera. Honey, give me the camera. Give me the camera. Honey, and the kid's like, woo! And then it cuts to the cameraman and the director sitting there like wide-eyed with his jaw down, and the cinematographer feels so embarrassed. He goes, I am so, and the director goes, I love it.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a film that you shouldn't be not that you shouldn't watch multiple times, but it's not like you wouldn't be expected to. Not like
it's a film you should be like, I saw it once, that's enough. Yeah,
but for me, it's a good go-to kind of. It almost sounds bad to say it's a good neutral film, but it's a good film like I could put on, because you don't have to I tried, for example, I did a bit of painting while watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the past weekend or whatever, New Year's and stuff like that, and because it's like 4 hours, I have plenty of time to paint.
Yeah,
but. At the same time, it's a film that I really liked the film. I had no problem sitting through and watching it. But because you kind of have to pay attention the entire time of that film, it's not good for just throwing on. And you don't honestly necessarily have to pay attention to absolutely every minute if you've seen it before, obviously. But I don't know about you, but when, for example, you go to Elvish and it's all subtitled, I have to read this. I want to see what they're actually saying.
Yeah.
Which is the same reason why I can't do anime subtitle while I'm trying to paint, because I'm like, I don't know what they're actually saying. I have to read it. So I have to pay attention. It's like, I'm not going to just sit there, oh, they're speaking in a language you don't understand. I got this. I have to actually, while I'm painting, I have to read it. So the Lord of the Rings does that because, well, there's elves and stuff. And so you have to constantly pay attention and jump back and forth. With like, Unstoppable, you get the idea. Literally, the film's on rails, like the train. Like, you got the idea. It's not going to randomly take a left turn. You know what's going to happen. So, like, literally, both with the train itself and with the plot. So you don't have to be completely dialed in, which is why I say it's a good neutral film to throw on if you just want to have a movie on.
Yeah.
But, it's not... I don't watch it that many times for the same reason I watch Star Wars ad nauseum. Like, I watch Star Wars ad nauseum because it's a cult thing. We have to.
Yep.
It's like in fact if you're a Star Wars fan and you haven't watched it ridiculous amount of times, somebody might be knocking at your door to take you in because it's required.
For all these things, Revenge of the Sith is coming out in 3D in theaters.
True, which makes me want to do yet another Star Wars marathoning throughout the week. And I mean, not that it's gotten bad, because I have no regrets, but when I was in college, my final year of college in my dorm, I had it down to a routine. I watched, one movie a day, and it was episode 1. Then I watched episode 2. Then I watched the original cartoon, Clone Wars thing.
Oh, the one where everyone complains that Grievous wasn't as awesome as in that one?
Yeah, the original cartoon one that was on Cartoon
Yeah.
Network. Not the CG.
So that was supposed to explain what happened between 2 and 3.
Yeah, I watched that because I watched
It was the only thing we had.
Yeah, I watched that in order. So I watched episode 1 one day, episode 2 the next day. I watched the entire Clone Wars thing because it's really not that long. Then I would watch episode 3, then 4, 5, and 6, and then rinse repeat for like 2 or 3 months straight of just doing that every week. And I have no regrets because I really enjoyed the Star Wars series.
So good.
So I'm looking forward to this one, and I'm looking forward to doing another run, a binge run like that. I even done it with Fast and the Furious because I like a good car comedy. So,
car comedy.
And I can't wait for the 7th one because I've seen the trailer and it's more ridiculously over-the-top things you can't actually do with cars. So it's going to be really funny. But you know what is a trailer I saw recently?
What?
Chappie.
Never heard of this.
It's like, basically, I don't know if it's how far in the future it's set. The whole idea is the police force is a bunch of robots now. And this one guy's like, I got it, a new life form type of thing, and he's got like a little micro SD card.
I'm gonna watch the trailer right now.
He's got like a micro SD card, and he makes like this, takes one of these things and makes it self-aware, like it's aware of its life. It basically makes a new life form, a robotic life.
The director of District 9.
Yeah, and he could,
already good.
And the thing is, when you look at it and the design of it, it just makes you go, man, I want District 9 to have a sequel. That's the only thing I could think of. But it looked okay, the idea of Chappie. I'll probably see it. But from my concern, and this is kind of an odd concern, I feel it has potential to be too preachy, You know, like when a film gets preachy, I kind of lose interest. Like, dude, just entertain me. Entertain me, Jester. Yeah. It's like, but so my only concern is that it can get preachy. But it looks, I like the idea, and also my concern is, you fool. You're going to kill us all. That's going to be... Chappie will be the new name for Skynet. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But, so there was that. And something I saw on Steam was basically the return of Resident Evil, the first one. They're doing a digital HD remaster of it, which is really cool because it's basically the exact same game control-wise. I know people go out there and go, actually, this has been changed temporarily. Like, so, whatever. It's the same game. But... it's cool, and I hope it does well because I like the idea of taking classic games and breathing the HD life into them so they look like modernized and everything, because the game looks great now.
Yeah. And
everything. But I have no interest to buy it because I never liked the way Resident Evil 1 controlled. But I thought it looked cool, and I'm hoping it has the same exact lines. Like, you were almost a Jill sandwich. I'm hoping that line's still in there.
Would you like a sandwich?
And then, like, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Well, it's not that, the joke was, you're the master of lockpicking. So it's like, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this lockpick. Because you, the master of lockpicks.
That was one of those games where I never actually got through. I've only gotten through half of Resident Evil 2. Like, I did the one ending with Leon.
Yeah.
And that was it. So,
you know what's crazy about Resident Evil 2?
What?
I, for the life of me, constantly confuse Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. Because, like, literally, 3 picks up right where 2 ended. Like, literally, essentially. And you're basically playing through almost the same setting. So I'm like, wait, which game are we playing? I'm so lost. Like, what's the story anymore? But, like, and I've only ever gotten, like, halfway through Resident Evil 1.
What I'd have to say what intrigued me the most about Resident Evil was the live-action cutscenes.
That was really cool. I like that.
Like, it's a cheesy and it was a cheap way to get rid of... Oh, here we go, Resident Evil, pre-purchase.
Yep.
It was a cheap way to get your game files around, but oh, wow, they really upped everything.
Right, it looks great.
It looks, like, modern.
Exactly, that's all they did to it, was basically a remastered HD version of the game. And it looks great, it's just like, one thing I'm glad they kept the controls the same, basically, but that was the one thing I didn't really like about the game.
Yeah.
Controlling of it. And that was same for 2 and 3. 4 kind of got a bit better, but I actually played through 5 and beat it, and, people forget, like, speaking of Resident Evil, the game, the first one, yeah, you had zombies, but you had weird plant monster. You had the shark. You had
the snake.
The snake. You had a whole bunch. Yeah, the snake. I think a big spider too. Like
yep, there was a spider at one point,
and like killer bees and stuff. Like
yep.
people forget.
Not the bees.
Yes, people forget that Resident Evil was, you know, zany, off the wall, crazy from the beginning. Yeah. And I say that because I've watched all the Resident Evil movies. Yeah. Again, I enjoyed them. People like, you know, got a little silly, and I was like, whoa, no. The games were silly from day one. So
crows. You also had crows.
Yeah, you had crows.
And the little, like, the things that look like deep ones.
Yeah. And then you had, like, the big bad boss guy.
The tyrant.
The tyrant, there we go. And and then you had people going, well, you know, the first Resident Evil movie was okay, but then, like, they started getting kind of silly and weird in the second and third movies, and I always tell them, stop. Have you played the Resident Evil games? They were silly from the first game. You're facing a giant plant monster.
The one thing that I always found weird was how it was all part of Stryker's evil plan to get brutally murdered.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, your plan was to get brutally murdered? I thought that would be like the goal is to not get brutally murdered.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. The games went off a wild track.
Yes, the plots got very weird.
The plot, like Resident Evil 5 bared very little, if any, resemblance to Resident Evil 1. But, you know, but again, Resident Evil 1 wasn't this super serious, oh my god, you know, zombie thing. You had zombies. It was more horror for sure, because you were just trapped in this mansion in underground chambers. But, again, you had the weird dogs, the crows, the bees, the spider, the shark, the plant. I mean, the plant was the funniest, because basically you had to make super weed killer to kill it. Like, it was crazy from the beginning. So I always say that when people kind of start jumping on the movies for being kind of weird, I'm like, they're just based off the games. Have you played the games? The games are weird. The games were like, let's make a horror survival game on LSD. That's basically how the games were. I mean, it was always kind of weird when you can get healed by herbs. And, you know, you have
herbs. Yeah, and you saved through typewriting.
I hated that about the first game the most. Like, I hated the whole
limited number of saves and all that junk.
Any game where you basically have a limited number of saves / you have to find the thing. It wasn't just like, oh, find the typewriter. You had to find ink ribbons and then go to the typewriter to save.
Yep.
That was terrible. I hated that.
Yeah, that was one of the system pieces I hated. And then they had the nerve to deduct your score if you use the save button too many times.
Right. And then, like, don't get me wrong. I can understand kind of having a, like, something similar to that effect for kind of the desperation feel of a horror survival game. But don't penalize me for wanting to save my progress because, I don't know, I can't play through the whole game in one sitting, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole reason save existed, is so we can save our progress.
Well, like I said, if you're going to deduct my rank from it, then give me the ability to save whenever I want.
Exactly.
Don't two-fold it where limited number of saves and every time you save you get punished. It's like, no, that's not fair.
Right. So, I mean, I instantly not that big of a fan of anything that has, like, even limited number of saves, because who are you to dictate how many times I can save? And I say that because, you know, not everybody can play a 4-hour stint of a game and then save it. Sometimes you only have an hour to play and you enjoy the game and want to play it. But that was the one thing I didn't like about it, which I'm glad they finally got rid of. You know, eventually got rid of that. And speaking of games, Warped Game or whatever his name was, I picked up the director's cut thing of Shadowrun.
Okay.
The RPG game thing.
Yes.
The setting's cool. I like the setting. I like the whole idea of, like, you know, human.
Which Shadowrun did you get?
The director's cut one.
Oh, no, which Shadowrun?
What do you mean?
Like Shadowrun The Return, or?
It was on Steam. It was just the latest. Hold on. It was Shadowrun Dragonfall director's cut.
Okay.
Yeah, that one I purchased. And that's
the trick, is trying to figure out which one's the original.
Yeah, well, I mean, they all basically, from what I can tell, play the same way, which is the way that I don't actually like to play, which is turn-based strategy RPG. I have no problem with like turn-based, kind of like a la Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy, where battle happens and then you take your turn, they take their turn. But I don't like the whole Final Fantasy
Fire Emblem series?
Or Final Fantasy Tactics style of stuff.
Yeah, where it's you move, they move, you attack, they attack, and everything is turn-based.
Well, like I just don't like. It's basically an RPG mixed with turn-based strategy, and I don't like that. Because I'm not a fan of turn-based strategy. I'm just bad at it, and I just don't like it. So I've tried this game out a few times. The setting's cool. I really do like the setting. The idea of the humans, the elves, the trolls, and the orcs, I think, or something like that. I like what the idea of that. The different kind of classes you can go with is cool. Cool setting. But I knew going in I wasn't going to be able to really do much because, and I do want to get more progress because I haven't even played it a half an hour, but just because I'm just so turn-based strategy RPG makes me go but the setting's cool, so I definitely dig in the setting. I wish they had it more either. I wish it was more, I don't want to say Diablo-like, but more like just action RPG that way. Or more KOTOR style. Not so much in the view. It can still be the isometric view. But if they did it in one of those two fashions, where you encountered an enemy, game pause, decide your actions, then it just keeps going until somebody dies, or you change your action, or you pause it to do stuff, that would have been much better. And also because you're controlling a squad, and the moment you give me more than, let's say, 3 people, I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore. You give me way too many options of strategy here. Come on, I'm simple. But no, it's cool. So it's a setting that I would definitely get into more. But like I said, outside of that being a game that I can play on my own and don't know anybody around me who's interested in Shadowrun.
Yeah. But
I thought I'd do a little update. I actually did go out of my way to purchase it and give it a look-see. I'm not disappointed. It's just that it's a game formula that I just doesn't jive with me.
And speaking of formulas for games that aren't jiving with people, there have been a big set of rumors involving Warhammer Fantasy. Yeah.
I think as the years go on, people forget kind of the way you're supposed to do rumors. Like I think people need a tutorial on how to get a rumor started, because it's not just go for the hills craziness. It's not like, hey, I'm all hopped up in PCP making an idea. It's gotta be, you gotta have it grounded a little bit, even if the actual factual thing is gonna be ludicrously outrageous. Rumors used to be, hey, new edition of a game coming out, of main rules coming out, gonna go from percentages to this, or it's gonna do this to this, or it's gonna condense a couple armies together. Now it's kind of like, based on the phase of the moon and this third part of the sky, we're gonna have to flip a coin and then pick a color, and from there we can build an army. Like, it's getting crazy.
Well, one interesting thing I will say is 2 things on it. Is one, like a latest rumored schedule releases come out, and we've got mid-January Skavens, which have been confirmed by latest White Dwarfs and all that. Late Jan Necrons, early mid-February Harlequins, late mid-Feb, mid-March End Times Archon, or Archeon, or however you want to pronounce that Chaos dude's name. Late March Chaos Space Marine Supplement, which, with how these rumors are going around, sounds more plausible than the original rumor has been.
I guess.
It seems to make more sense, I think, in that front, but who knows? Early, mid-April Mechanicum.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then late April, mid-May, Warhammer Fantasy 9th, or a new game called Warhammer. Late May, maybe Sororitas, and early June, new Warhammer starter set. So, Sororitas, good luck, that's never going to happen.
I'll give it its a just deserved maybe, just because when Blood Angels went White Dwarf Codex style back in the day.
Yeah.
Nobody ever expected them to come back, even with the rumors like of an actual book. So, and then they did.
So we'll see, but I'm not holding my breath.
I'm just not, because I don't hold my breath. Like, again, with rumors, now, a timetable thing, those tended to be in the past a bit more reliable and just a rumor about something coming out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can't go into the third quarter of a year when the year just started and expect anything to be factual. And the other thing is, you notice how the Chaos one said supplement?
Yep.
But the Harlequin one I don't believe does.
No. Which
is why I don't believe the Harlequin one, because there's no way you can make a codex purely for the Harlequin.
Well, here's the thing. It could be because the rumor has been switching more to just plastic Harlequins. That may be what they mean by that. Like, they're not sure if it's a supplement or just a box set or what it is. Yeah,
it's just that I don't... Again, with the Harlequins, model-wise, I'm all for plastic models. But anything else past that, I really don't feel it's going to happen.
I feel like they could do well with a plastic set, because the Harlequins are supposed to be dancy and flighty, and I think giving them, give them, a plastic set where you can move and position their legs and arms around so they can do crazy poses.
Oh yeah, or at the very least not have static models. When they're plastic, they can be posed and kind of converted up a little bit to look different. Yes. But when they're all just like statically posed, they may look dynamic, but when I have 3 models look exactly the same.
Billion of them.
That look exactly the same. It loses its feel. And don't get me wrong, I feel the Eldar in general could benefit from more plastic.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to give me this ability to make a super customizable Autarch, then give me the kit to make a super customizable
Autarch. Not like 2 models with 2 of the least useful war gear.
Right. If you're gonna give us these options, then give us the kit for them. But I just... it never fails every year. Mechanicum comes out as a rumor, so we'll see. The fantasy stuff is what is the most interesting to me in terms of rumor wise, because they went for a home run with the craziness of rumor.
Yes. Well, that's why I want to bring it up. Like, this guy says, Warhammer Fantasy 9th or a new game called Warhammer. And to be perfectly honest, the latest rumors about some of this stuff is, when I hear it, it sounds more like a supplement, like that Storm Magic thing, versus a new edition. So, like, I feel like this may be more of an End Times epilogue that's an add-on, not a full-on rebirth of fantasy.
Yeah, and my thing with this, I think it's really cool that they're doing the Warhammer End Times, because, they've been in that it's the End Times thing for like a decade. So it's actually happening. And, having Nagash have a model and rule set, having the stuff for the Skaven come out with like their Super Vermin Lord dude and whatnot, and having all the big baddies coming out to play is cool. And it feels like progression in overall story of Warhammer Fantasy. But it also feels kind of dangerous. It feels like not so much running yourself into a hole, but it feels very much like, well, the only place we can go from this is either evil wins or good wins. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to have an end to the story here, and therefore kind of like done with it. It almost feels like, not saying they're trying to get rid of Warhammer Fantasy, but it almost feels like the only place we have to go after this is either a reboot, like, a DC Crisis, or just done with story, and just have the edition be this. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things why I would like to see progression in story on the 40K front as well. It's concerning because you get to a certain level, and you go, well, what do we do from here? Like. And the thing for fantasy is it's just one planet. So I really feel like they're at that level right now, because you have Nagash is back, essentially. I don't know the story of him in the End Time stuff, but when you release a model and rules for Nagash, basically Sauron, it's kind of a big deal, and it kind of puts you into a position, well, this is the final showdown. And that means you have to have, like, either you stay at this final showdown forever, or you have to eventually conclude it.
Yeah. I would actually I think, like, fantasy, it honestly would benefit from a complete reboot, in all honesty. Get rid of, some of the models that are, are being, wonky and such. Get everything reset up. Okay, here's the new system. Here's the new story type of setup. Keep the end times thing happening. As fade into myth and legend. But also, it can give the ability to reintroduce whatever's been removed in a new way.
Right. Now, my question for the Free Gamers is, how do you feel about any, not just fantasy, like what if War Machine went reboot and did what if your game of choice did that? How would you feel? Because it would be interesting, but I could see huge backlash. You know what I mean? Like, because then people can go, so what, is my army worthless? And it's like, no, it's not worthless. We have to change. It's basically all like, I feel, heck, honestly, 40K could benefit from just starting over again. I mean,
yeah.
And the only reason I say that, and even War Machine to an extent, because these games, when did War Machine first come out? Do you know?
Oh, that came out when I was in college, so like 02-ish, 03-ish.
So it's been a decade at the very least.
Roughly.
Yeah. I feel after a game has been around and developed and grown over a decade, it really can benefit from almost a reboot, because let's just use 40K as the example, because it's been around for so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, fantasy, yes, too, but we have the Sanctum Imperialis old book that has a lot of stuff that has no bearing on the current 40K fluff. There's a lot. There was Slan. There was, they had models for basically Beastmen in space. They had 40K evolved so much over the 25 plus years, right? So when you look at that, there's just so much stuff that needs to be cleaned. That if they just we're starting over with the way because now it's like it's grown up, it's figured out the way it wants to be. So there was a whole learning curve and growth process that a game goes through. War Machine's going through it. Every game goes through it. And once you get it to like, okay, this is the identity of the game, is almost, I feel like almost any game, once it finds out this is how we're going to run, this is what we're looking for, this is our style, would almost benefit from wiping the whole slate clean and just reintroducing it as that to begin with,
Yeah.
Because then it's like, okay, we basically hit the reset button, this is the story, confirmed, 100% canon, all this stuff, and everything else is working pretty well. This is it now. But at the same time, I feel like huge backlash just from the community for doing that, because you're basically going, reboot, and everybody is, what's that mean for my army? What's that mean for my stuff? And it's like, relax. But you can't. But I think a good reboot is something that, any game that's existed for a while could definitely benefit from. Personally,
I feel like, especially games like these, because they have evolving stories. Because eventually the story's going to wound up where it'd be like, well, it's either going to have to end or have such a cheesy Deus Ex Machina that keeps the story going.
Right.
So when you start hitting that point, you kind of should, I think, reboot. Yeah. Just for the sake of getting yourself back to a point in the story where you can evolve it.
I got you.
Every reboot doesn't have to be a reset. Like a good example, 9th edition can reboot and just still say End Times happened. This is the world after End Times. It's a reboot, but the story didn't get invalidated.
Right. Now, and also it gives them a good opportunity to cut out story, too.
Yep.
Like, for example, there's a story of a novel coming out for the Grey Knights. And they're building it up as maybe one of the Grey Knights fell to chaos.
Yeah.
And that is something that, if that proves to be the way the story goes, could benefit from a reboot being cut out of existence. In terms of not just not worrying about, and really, not really worrying about that as part of fluff. And the reason I bring that one up specifically is because you can always make it feel like you fell to chaos, but he actually is the true Puritan guy because he had to kill everything, so it looks like he fell to chaos. Yeah. But that would be the equivalent of taking established fluff of the Dark Angels and going, so yeah, another fallen was captured and they made him captain of the 8th Company. Wait, what? Excuse me?
Because he was so trustworthy.
Yeah, it's like, it's that level of kind of really not jiving well with your established fluff. Like the grants are established of they'll die before, being corrupted, which is fine. Kill him then. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But like, don't say, we have one that fell, because when you do that, you give yourself a precedent. Whenever you kind of pull you back on your story and drastically change something out of nowhere, basically at the drop of a hat, because that's basically what it is, a story that came out of nowhere, because didn't exist until the author wrote it, obviously. You set a precedent for possible problems in the future.
Yeah.
So you have to, if you have established fluff, you kind of got to mold it over time, and if you want it to change, which is why in some cases a hard reboot is better. But in the case of fantasy, like you said, it could be the end times happened, everything blew up, basically, and this is the aftermath, and it also gives them times to maybe say, you know what, this, Harry the Hammer was kind of dumb. Let's just kind of phase him out of existence and never have to worry about it again. But
because you could easily just write off everything in old fantasy went into legend.
Exactly. So
and then just some legends faded out of existence.
Exactly. Now, I would say it's safe to say amongst the feelers, you're kind of like a resident War Machine guy.
I would say that, because I think I'm the only one with an army.
Pretty good, qualifications. Now, because I'm not really into the game at all. I know about the different forces. I know the setting is kind of interesting and whatnot. What is it that hooked you?
I'd have to say originally it was the story and the mechanics.
Okay.
The story was very interesting, and the Crix models looked really super awesome.
Right.
But the game mechanics were what were really intriguing about it.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, because it's always because everybody's got their fandom of whatever they like, so it's interesting. Like, what hooked people? Like for me, for 40K, what hooked me was honestly it came down to specific models: the Wraith Lord, the battle suits, and the Dreadnought. I thought those things looked really cool, and I wanted to learn more about the game and the world because of it. I'm like, because those things are cool. What's going on here? So that's what hooked me. I knew nothing about the rules of the fluff originally, but I'm like, those things look cool. End of story. Type of deal. Kind of the same thing that got me into BattleTech was giant mechs blowing each other up in a city.
Yes, please.
Where do I sign? Type of deal. But now, as a War Machine player, do you have any interest in hordes?
No, not really. I don't like any of the models, and I don't like the rage system.
Gotcha.
Or the fury system in that game. It's a little bit more, it's not complicated, but it's a little bit more confusing for me, and I just don't enjoy it.
Right. That's not another thing that really kind of took some, I guess, wind out of the sails for that Privateer Press stuff for me. Was hordes, or whatever it's called. Yeah, hordes.
Hordes.
Because no interest at all in it, personally. No interest. Nothing really seems cool to me on it. It's just not my thing. I'm not a big monster guy. And then the fact that basically the two are not, essentially linked, and you battle each other and do stuff like that. Not my bag. Not my bag of chips. Cup of tea type of deal. Because I'm not saying it is, but it's almost like saying, okay, so what else versus Necrons? And it's like, wait, what? Yep. Excuse me? It's like, what do you mean we can just start battling Warhammer Fantasy to 40K? It's like, and that's a drastic comparison because distinctly different systems, but I just felt like War Machine feels so much nicer to me setting-wise and stuff, if, separated from Hordes completely, 100%. And Hordes, even though I have no interest, seems a little bit cooler in my eyes if it were its own thing completely separately. Separate world, everything separate, just kind of like two separate games that you can play. Do you enjoy steampunky stuff? Yes, and play War Machine. Do you not? Do you like monsters? Okay, play Hordes,
Yeah.
That's kind of the idea of sci-fi and fantasy. That's why they are separate things. I'm not saying those are sci-fi and fantasy, but when you look at sci-fi and fantasy games, they tend to be completely separate systems and games because you enjoy one or the other, or maybe both, point of view. And for me, and I don't know if any Horde players or War Machine players out there feel this way, like, do they not, like, do you like that Hordes is basically War Hordes, or would you prefer it to be separate as a player of War Machine? Like,
That's a good question. Me, personally, I don't mind it.
Gotcha.
Mainly because the models and the setting are pretty much so very similar, it doesn't bother me.
Right.
The game has never, essentially the game has never put it past that these creatures can't exist in the War Machine universe.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, it fits. So that's why that's why I'm fine with it.
I got you. It's just, for me as an outsider, these creatures could possibly exist, sure, but it felt weird to me. It feels weird to me personally, and it's part of the reasons why I've never really tried to commit, because the Cricks look cool. What are they called? The Signar. I always forget Signar's name.
Signar.
I always forget that one. I can remember Minoth, but I can't remember Signar.
No one remembers Signar, not even Signar.
And even the Retribution, I kind of like the look of and stuff. But that's, I don't know. It's just I never really tried to commit to even picking up a model and painting one of them, because it's just the whole connected thing. Plus, the system is not something that truly appeals to me. It's cool. I get how it works in terms of not how it works, but I get why it works. I should say, because I don't know the rules. I don't get how it works, but I get why it works. It's just that I don't know. To me, and I get it's really exaggerated because I don't know the stuff. It almost feels like saying, okay, you have a fantasy army. Well, you can battle against 40k now. Yeah, that's what almost it feels like to me. And it's just kind of like, what? But I guess it's working. Now, does War Machine and Hordes have separate core rulebooks?
Yes.
Okay.
Because because the way beasts and warcasters work are completely different between warcasters and jacks.
Right, but it's not like one big Privateer Press rulebook that has both in it. You have to buy.
Yeah, no, you have to buy them separately.
Okay.
Because the games were originally designed to be separate. From my understanding, now I could be wrong, because Hordes came out kind of when I took a break from everything.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Hordes is supposed to be what happened before the Iron Kingdoms were formed. In terms of this is how civilizations were and such, and then the Iron Kingdoms came out, but I could be wrong on that front. But it was basically established like these are the people outside. These guys have their own problems dealing with everything. Plus, they've got War Machine hanging out on the front line, and they also run a risk of causing them problems. And then they said, you know what? Let's combine the thing. But I think the original idea was supposed to be that you could play them together. Okay. Because the advertisement for Hordes was, I believe, Hordes, play, all of your friends play War Machine? Well, here's good news. It can play with War Machine.
Gotcha. And to that, it's an interesting hook, It is a good way to say, hey, you're not into this stuff, but you like monsters? Well, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we got something for you to play.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting hook for people who like that sort of thing. And that makes me want to ask you and the Fearless Gamers yet another question, because I am the keeper of questions.
The keeper of questions. There's our new Chaos God to place Mal.
The keeper of questions. He doesn't actually do or give you anything. He just asks you stuff, and that's about it.
And his demons are all giant question marks.
Yes, and nobody really knows what they do because they're just asking questions. So it's just kind of like they don't actually corrupt worlds. They just get people thinking, and it's weird.
It's going to be the Chaos Demon even that makes Mal make everyone forget that he existed. Because this dude is 10 times worse.
Exactly.
But, the Keeper of Questions.
The Keeper of Questions. Watch out for that guy.
Yeah.
Sci-fi...
Write it in your book.
Yeah. Sci-fi and fantasy. All right?
Yes.
Part of the big draw for both be it movies, shows, games, is alien races or non-human stuff. What is your / the Fearless Gamers take? Like, if a fantasy setting came out or a sci-fi setting was out, which they do exist, for example, BattleTech is just human, like, where it was just human, like, do you think that would get backlash against by the public if a fantasy system came out where it's basically just human? And I'm not saying War Machine was that, but I would say it was pretty close up until Retribution came out. In terms of what you played with. I mean, yeah, you have
you have trolls and all that,
stuff, but it was kind of close-ish. But like, do you think, like, what are people's take on that? With that, do you think that could work? Because I gotta be honest, I've always enjoyed, like, obviously, like I said last time, I'm a huge fan of elves and whatnot, but I've also liked the idea of it being that same type of fantastical setting in fantasy or a super futuristic setting in sci-fi, but it's just humans, you know, casting spells or blowing up other humans. And you basically have the setting of the different human factions almost feel like, not alien races, but take up that role. Because typically, the one thing I don't like about humans in most everything, what are they in most everything? We're the jack of all trades normal guys. But we have heart, so that's why we're super dangerous. And it's like, wait, what? Excuse me?
Well, heart was the only way they could form Captain Planet.
It was. But it's, but I'm just like, wait, excuse me? So we're the guys that are basically going, oh, every other race is either stronger than, faster than, better than. But
we've got good intentions.
But we've got spirit. How about you? And it's like, we really have spunk. We show a lot of gumption. And
we're not a very smart people. But what we lack in brains, we make up with good intentions.
So, like, that's what the race human in a lot of RPGs and what gets relegated to, the pure jack of all trades. So I kind of like it better when humans actually have specializations and kind of like, you know, do stuff. So in that regard, if there was a game kind of like that or like a setting like that, I'm wondering the Fearless Gamers' take on that. Is that something they'd be kind of resistant to? And how about yourself?
My answer before we leave for the day would be, I think all human game only works really in sci-fi. For some reason, I feel that when you're in sci-fi and you're like on a single planet or something, people are more accepting of just an all-human cast.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, well, that's all on this one planet, so interstellar travel isn't there. So, of course, there'd only be humans, because only humans live on this planet. And they made different factions, they built things, it's cool, it's cool. I feel fantasy, and there are exceptions. I mean, like in Game of Thrones, I believe there's only just humans in that, and just different cultures. I feel fantasy, people are more expecting of weirder and crazy other cultures other than just humans.
You got a point there, and I think it depends, like, how fantasy is your fantasy.
Yeah. In
terms of, like, you know, well, not counting dragons, because, you know, dragons are dragons. They kind of show up and stuff happens. But, like, is your fantasy super hardcore fantasy, in which case I think it's harder to kind of portray a pure human world, because people, like, you know, I think it's kind of built in. We expect there to be people on elves and dwarves and orcs. It's kind of expected, like, and to a certain extent, orcs are the perfect throw it as a villain thing. It's like, nobody cares. You kill a bunch of orcs, whatever, right? You know, when in doubt, kill orcs.
Orcs must die.
Right. But I think if it's a more mild toned back fantasy setting, where it's still fantasy, it's not historical, it's not like back in the day, medieval times, but when it's more, I guess, fantasy light, I think a pure human thing can get away with it. You know, I don't know. I think at the very least, if you're going to go and say you're fantasy, then I think it really depends. Like a war game, you probably would have to have different. If you have other factions in your group that are not human, people want to play them. Mm-hmm. But for example, Ultima Online and the Ultima setting pretty much was human only.
Yeah.
You can only, for the longest time, you could only make a human character in Ultima Online. Now you can make an elf or a gargoyle, but it used to be just human. And there were gargoyles. There were NPC gargoyles you had to kill. There were orcs you had to kill, but you could only ever... It was basically a story of human civilization in a fantasy setting. So
yeah.
I think in a war game, if you're going to try and do that, you're going to have to make an orc army for people to play and whatnot. But I think if it's a game or a story... You could kind of get away with it being like this is a tale of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air Fantasy Edition, but like
where Uncle Phil is dressed up like the Shredder.
I don't know. I think for me personally, I think for fantasy it could work, but I do agree with you. I feel it would be harder for a real hardcore fantasy setting to be just human, and be successful or popular. I think sci-fi, even a multi-planet sci-fi thing can work because we just look at it as, well, it's not saying that aliens don't exist, and that's kind of like a hook that some things use. It's like, well, we just haven't found them yet, or they're not there, and they're not talking with us yet, or they don't exist. I mean, it could just be the idea of we just never really found aliens, but we have people with awesome, starships and cool tech, and we're humans, so shoot each other. Why not?
Yep.
That's kind of when in doubt and there's no orcs, then blow each other up.
Kill all the humans.
Blow each other up with massive cool technology.
And so, like the wild card said, Fearless Gamers, what's your take? What's your take about like an all human sci-fi or all human fantasy setting? And do you think one works better than the other? And why can we not see why kids like Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Right. I mean, I don't like cinnamon, period, so.
So, that is all for right now. So, until next time, Fearless Gamers, this is Matt the Vet.
James the Wildcard.
Saying take care.
Peace.